What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video. Today we are breaking down week 15 of fantasy hockey, and what that means is we're going to be looking at the best and worst schedules, new must-add players, and the streamers to help you maximize your games. Without further ado, let's dive right into it. Before we start, make sure you guys follow me on X/Twitter at FIREDUP Fantasy. I post a lot of up-to-date information and some content on there as well. I posted a thread of buy low players a couple of days ago. As you guys can see here, I talked about Jordan Kyrou. This is before he scored his hat trick. Alex Ovechkin, Tim Stützle. He just had 4 apples, I think, last night. John Tavares, I think, is a really solid buy low player in terms of his shooting percentage. Cole Caulfield. I also talked about Brandon Montour, one of my favorite buy low defensemen as well. So trade for Brandon Montour. And yeah, I just wanted to give you guys an example that I do post a lot of content that is exclusive to Twitter on my Twitter account, so give me a follow. The first thing I want to talk about is some new must-add players. The list that we have right here is forwards, and a lot of these players I did talk about in last week's video, so I understand if it's a little bit redundant, but I still think they are a must-add player. So if they are available, please take a look at them. Now, the first must-add player is Jordan Kyrou of the St. Louis Blues. I understand in most of your leagues that he's not available, but he could be if you're in a more shallow league, like 8 teams or less. This guy, he's getting more ice time since Berube got fired. He is exclusively on the first line with Pavel Buchnevich and Robert Thomas. He's shooting the puck a ton, and I really do think he's going to have a really good second half of the season. So if he is available, please add him. Next up is Owen Tippett of the Philadelphia Flyers. This guy's been a beast this year despite pretty bad deployment. He's been averaging less than 16 minutes of ice time per game on the season, but as of late, he is getting more minutes. This is a huge sign for Tippett because we know that this guy is a beast in peripheral leagues, right? Leagues that count shots and hits. He takes so many shots and he puts up so many hits. He's also on the first line power play. I know the Flyers have the worst power play in the league, but if this deployment continues with the amount of minutes that he's getting, there is a lot of potential. In a category league, he's probably rostered in most of those type of leagues, but he could be available in some points leagues, so please take a look at him. Next, we got Igor Sharangovich. I've been telling you to add this guy for I don't know how long now. It's been quite a bit. And for me, it's pretty obvious. He's getting like 20 minutes a night. He's on the first line in the first line power play, and he is an absolute sniper. Please take a look at him if he's available because I do think that his production is sustainable. Next up, we got Jonathan Drouin of the Colorado Avalanche. This guy's been absolutely elite as of late. He's on the first line with Nathan MacKinnon and Mikko Rantanen. He's also on the first line power play. And we know that they're going to keep that first line together for now. They've said that when Lehkonen comes back, Lehkonen will be on the second line. We'll see what happens with the power play, but there's no reason to take Drouin off the power play with how well this power play is doing. There's a chance that Drouin stays with this deployment for the entire season, so this is an absolute must-add player. Next up, we got Joel Farabee of the Philadelphia Flyers. This guy's been an absolute beast as of late. He is breaking out, and what we're seeing with Farabee is that he's getting a lot of minutes, and he's also on the first-line power play. His peripherals are decent. He looks great out there. I just think this is a no-brainer ad for me. Ride the hot hand, see how it goes. His shooting percentage isn't too high. He's taking a decent amount of shots, and I think he's going to be pretty good for the rest of the year. Next up, we got Washington Capitals forward Max Pacioretty. He scored his first goal as a Capital a couple of nights ago, and we've actually seen his deployment get better as he plays more games. I don't know what's going to happen long term, right? There's a lot of injuries right now. Ovi's been out, Wilson's been out, but I do think with Pacioretty's talent, there's a good chance that he gets top 6 minutes and also gets on the first line power play. If he's available, I suggest you take a look at him. It's pretty simple, guys. There's some risk that he could get re-injured, right? He's been so injury prone, but he's a guy that has been an elite sniper in his career and a guy that puts up really solid peripherals. So yeah, take a look at him. Next up, we got Gustav Nyquist of the Nashville Predators. This one's pretty obvious, guys. It's not like he's been, just starting to play good. He's been playing good the entire year. He's on the first line in the first line power play, so if he's available, I think he's a pretty solid ad. Next up, we got Blake Coleman of the Calgary Flames. I don't know what's going on with Blake Coleman, but this guy's on pace for like 36, 37 goals. He's not even on the first line power play. I don't know how sustainable this goal scoring is because his shooting percentage is pretty high compared to his career, but you got to add a guy that's playing this good. So yeah, take a chance on Coleman and hopefully he can keep it up. Next up, we got Jack Quinn of the Buffalo Sabres. With Jeff Skinner out week to week, Quinn is on the first line power play, and he's also getting top 6 minutes. I don't know what will happen when Jeff Skinner comes back, but either way, this is a very talented player. If you guys looked at last season, he had 37 points despite averaging 13 minutes and 30 seconds of ice time per game. If you see him hover around 16 to 17 minutes this year, there is a good chance he has a really good season. Hopefully, he can be really good long term, but for now, with Jeff Skinner out, there's a lot of potential. So in the short term, absolutely a must-add player. Next up, we got Dawson Mercer of the New Jersey Devils. Similar to Jack Quinn, this is definitely more of a short-term play. With Jack Hughes out, Mercer has found himself on the first line and the first line power play. So for the next couple of weeks, I think Mercer is going to produce pretty good. Next up, we got Chandler Stevenson of the Vegas Golden Knights. We have a lot of injuries to Vegas Golden Knights players. Jack Eichel just got injured and he's going to miss some time. William Karlsson is out week to week. With that being said, we have Chandler Stevenson on the first line and the first line power play. So if he can't produce with amazing deployment, I don't know what to say. I think he is going to bounce back, so take a look at him in the short term. Moving on, we got some more must-add forwards. We have Logan Couture of the San Jose Sharks. He's returning from injury likely this week. I'm pretty sure I read that he's looking to play tomorrow on Monday. I know he's probably going to be pretty rusty when he returns, but Couture has been a very solid player for the last couple of years, playing top line minutes, first line power play, 60 to 70 point player, very solid shots, hits, and blocks. So yeah, if you're in a deeper league and he's available, I think you should take a chance on him. Next up, we got Ryan Hartman of the Minnesota Wild. The reason that Hartman is a must-add player is because he was moved up back to the first line with Kirill Kaprizov and Matt Zuccarello. Obviously, Hartman has been pretty disappointing, but maybe moving up to this first line could recapture the magic that he had a couple of seasons back. We'll see what happens. Not saying you should add him in a league with 12 teams or less, but 14 teams or more, he could be a pretty good option. Next up, we got TJ Oshie of the Washington Capitals. I do want to warn you that TJ Oshie is probably the biggest Band-Aid in the NHL, but when he's healthy, he's pretty darn good. He can score goals, he can put up points, he has really good peripherals. So yeah, take a look at Oshie and hopefully he can stay healthy for longer than a week. Next up, we got Morgan Geekie of the Boston Bruins. I talked about this guy in my last video, but basically with Geekie, he's on the first line and the first line power play. It's pretty valuable. Don't know how long it's going to last, but in a deeper league, I think it could be pretty good. Next up, we got Dylan Guenther of the Arizona Coyotes. He was only supposed to stay up with the team for a couple of games because Jason Zucker was suspended, but Guenther played really well, so they decided to keep him up with the team. I don't know how long this is going to last, and they will easily send him back to the AHL if he struggles, but he is currently on the first line power play, so there is potential. We'll see what happens, but definitely with this deployment, it could be solid in a deeper league. Next up, we got Ridley Greig of the Ottawa Senators. Right now, with Josh Norris out with a concussion, he is currently centering the first line, so in the short term, I think he's a great add. Next up, we got Shane Pinto of the Ottawa Senators. He's returning from his 41-game suspension very soon. And yeah, I mean, he was great last year as a rookie. I'm not expecting him to be fantastic in fantasy, but in a deeper league where he might be available, this could be a solid option. We also got some extra hits here. We have Boone Jenner. He is returning soon from his injury. We got Arturi Lehkonen, who is also returning soon. He might not be on the first line power play, and he's not going to be on the first line, but still, Lehkonen is a talented player, so we'll see what happens. And then finally, we got Kaapo Kakko returning today from injury. Kakko has been terrible this entire season, and I'm not telling you guys to add him, but maybe in a deeper league, you could take a look at him. Next up, we got some must-add defensemen. The first defenseman I want to talk about is Mackenzie Weegar of the Calgary Flames. Obviously, in most of your leagues, Weegar is not available, but if you're in a league that doesn't heavily value shots, hits, and blocks, then maybe you want to take a look at him and add him because he is on the first line power play now. I don't know how long this is going to last with guys like Noah Hannafin and Rasmus Andersson there, but the fact that he's on the first line power play is absolutely massive. And yeah, he's just been an absolute stud all season long. Next, we got Brock Faber of the Minnesota Wild. I talked about this guy in my last video, but with Faber, it's pretty obvious. He's playing a ton of minutes. He's on the first line power play. He looks great out there. His peripherals are decent. So yeah, this is a solid add that could be good long term. Next up, we got Jamie Drysdale of the Philadelphia Flyers. I was skeptical on the move from the Ducks to the Flyers because there was more competition for minutes, and also due to the fact that he is going to a team with the worst power play in the NHL. However, he played in 2 games and he looked very decent. He put up good minutes. He flies out there. He's a great skater. And I do think long term, they're going to put him on the first line power play. I don't think they're going to keep Zamula on the first line power play. If they put him on the first line power play and he's still getting these type of minutes, he will be solid in fantasy. So please take a look at him. Next up, we got Thomas Harley of the Dallas Stars. With Mira Heiskanen out week to week, Harley has seen better deployment in the form of better even strength minutes and also more power play time. They've been kind of mixing up their power play units in games, so sometimes they'll run 5 forwards, but he has seen time on the first line power play, so if you need a defenseman in the short term, he could be good for the next couple of weeks. Next, we got Alex Martinez of the Vegas Golden Knights. I don't know how long this is going to last, but it looks like he was moved up to the first line power play. Pietrangelo moved down to the second unit. Not good for Pietrangelo owners. The Golden Knights have a lot of injuries, so it's not like their power play is going to be the greatest, but I don't know. Take a look at Martinez in a deeper league if he's available. Next up, we got Colton Parayko of the St. Louis Blues. This is a defenseman that was recently moved up to the first line power play. I don't know how long this is going to last. Falk just came off the IR, so maybe they'll put Falk on there, but they're just trying to get this power play going in some way. So maybe it works, maybe it sticks, and that is definitely a big boost to his fantasy value. Lastly, we got 2 more defensemen. We got Adam Boqvist of the Columbus Blue Jackets. This is a short-term ad. He's on the first line power play with Werenski out, so for the next couple of weeks, he could put up some points. And then we got Igor Zamula of the Philadelphia Flyers. Zamula is currently on the first line power play. He's not getting a lot of minutes, and I do not expect this to be long-term, but he has played pretty well, so maybe in a deeper league where you need a defenseman, take a look at him. Next up, we got some must-add goalies. The first goalie I want to talk about is Filip Gustavsson of the Minnesota Wild. He played terrible last night against the Arizona Coyotes, I understand, but before he was injured, he was playing incredible. So if you want a starting goalie on an okay team, Filip Gustavsson is your guy. Next up, we got Samuel Ersson of the Philadelphia Flyers. Ersson has been absolutely electric this season, putting up amazing goals against average and save percentage numbers. He's splitting starts with Carter Hart as of late, and there's a chance he could actually steal some starts from Hart if he keeps playing this well. Next, we got Charlie Lindgren of the Washington Capitals. As I'm recording this, we just found out that he's playing on a back-to-back, both games against the New York Rangers. He's outplaying Kemper like crazy this year, so I do think that the Capitals may be forced to have him start the majority of the games. I will say that Kemper is getting paid a lot, so it's going to be hard to get something better than a split, but it could be maybe a 2-to-1 split favoring Lindgren in the near future. Next, we got Alex Lyon of the Detroit Red Wings. He's been playing really good for the Wings as of late, and he's starting the majority of the games. Ville Husso is injured, and he's still not ready, so for the short term, Lyon could be a very good option. Next, we got Daniil Tarasov of the Columbus Blue Jackets. This is a weird one, guys. Mers has been playing really good for the Blue Jackets this year in terms of his save percentage, but they decided to basically sit him and have him be their third string goalie. I don't really understand the move by Columbus, but it's looking like Mers is going to get traded. With that being said, Tarasov is starting the majority of the games. I'm not saying he's going to be good. I'm sure he's going to have a lot of bad nights, but in a points league that value saves, Tarasov could be a very good option. Next up, we got Nico Daws of the New Jersey Devils. He's been outplaying Vanacek as of late. He just had a really good game against the Florida Panthers. And with Vanacek playing so poorly, Daws could earn some more starts. Next up, we got Antti Ranta of the Carolina Hurricanes. Pyotr Kochetkov went down with a concussion, and apparently he's going to be out for a couple of weeks. So unless the Carolina Hurricanes trade for a goalie, Ranta will be starting the majority of the games in the near future. Lastly, we got Matt Sogard of the Ottawa Senators. He was just called up from the AHL because Anton Forsberg is out long-term. Korpisalo hasn't been very good, so there's a chance that Sogard could get some starts in a deeper league. Take a look at him. Moving on to the schedule. These are the teams with the most games and off nights for this week. We have a lot of teams that play 4 times this week and have really good schedules, so there's a lot of streaming options. The number 1 team to stream this week is definitely the New York Islanders. They have 4 games and 3 off nights and a solid opponent goals against average. They are the only team that has 4 games and 3 off nights this week. We also have teams that have 4 games and 2 off nights: the Devils, the Ducks, the Wild, the Stars, the Kraken, the Rangers, the Senators, and the Leafs. We have 2 teams that have 3 games and 3 off nights: the Blackhawks and the Red Wings. And then we have 4 teams that play 4 games and have 1 off night. These teams are the Flyers, the Canadiens, the Avalanche, and the Los Angeles Kings. Now, I do want to say one thing, and this is very important when streaming players. Off nights will depend on your team. So some of you may have open roster spots on Monday or Thursday, and some of you may not. There's nights that are definitely light, and you're always going to have open roster spots on those nights, but there's some nights that are kind of in the gray area when it comes to heavy. For example, Monday and Thursday, there's 10 games on those nights. There's a chance you could have open roster spots on these nights, so make sure you check your schedule to determine when you have open roster spots. Moving on, we have the teams with the least amount of games. We have 3 teams this week that only play twice, which is not good for maximizing your games. We have the Pittsburgh Penguins, the Blue Jackets, and the Winnipeg Jets. The Pittsburgh Penguins have a very bad opponent goals against average, so there's a good chance that having a lot of Pittsburgh Penguins players on your team this week will not be beneficial. Next up, we have the teams with the easiest opponent record this week. We have 5 teams on this list. We have the San Jose Sharks, the Buffalo Sabres, the Chicago Blackhawks, the Florida Panthers, and the Washington Capitals. If you want to add some goalies because of their easy opponent records, we have some examples down here. Charlie Lindgren, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, Peter Mrazek, and Mackenzie Blackwood. On the flip side, we have the teams with the hardest opponent records. These teams are probably not going to perform as good as they normally do, and their goalies could struggle. We have the Blue Jackets, the Los Angeles Kings, the Ottawa Senators, the Detroit Red Wings, and the Seattle Kraken. Moving on, we have the teams with the highest opponent goals against average. These teams are playing teams that let in a lot of goals, so there's a good chance that their players perform good. We have the Buffalo Sabres, the Chicago Blackhawks, the Winnipeg Jets, the San Jose Sharks, and the Florida Panthers. Then we have the teams that have the lowest opponent goals against average. These teams are playing teams that generally don't let in a lot of goals, so their players could underperform. We have the Nashville Predators, the Pittsburgh Penguins, the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Ottawa Senators, and the New York Rangers. Now is the part of the video where I give you guys the streamers to help you maximize your games for this week. Like I told you guys, the Islanders are the only team that have 4 games and 3 off nights. It does depend on your roster and which nights you have open roster spots on. But in general, these players are going to be pretty good for this week. We have Matthew Barzal, Bo Horvat, Brock Nelson, Kyle Palmieri, Anders Lee, and John Gabriel Peugeot. Next up, we got players on teams that play 4 games and 2 off nights. And yeah, there's a lot of options on this list, so I'll read them off pretty quick for you, and I'll explain a little bit why I think they are good adds. For the Devils, we have Hischier, Toffoli, Mercer, Eric Holla, who is currently getting top line minutes. He's getting like 18, 19, 20 minutes per night. Yeah, definitely a diamond in the rough. We got Luke Hughes, Alexander Holtz, Michael McLeod. Holtz and McLeod are playing really good lately, and they have a very good opponent goals against average this week, so they could be good options. Next up, we got Anaheim Ducks players. They pretty much split their power plays into 2 in terms of ice time, so there's really no first-line power play and second-line power play. We have Frank Vetrano, Troy Terry, Mason McTavish, Adam Henrique, Alex Killorn, and Cam Fowler. Then we got some Minnesota Wild players. We got Joel Eriksson, Matt Boldy, Zuccarello, Ryan Hartman, who's on the first line now, could be a good option. Brock Faber, still in the first-line power play. And then we got Marco Rossi, who is not on the first line anymore. He's on the third line, so maybe not the best option, but he's still on the first-line power play, I believe, which is solid. Then we got some Dallas Stars players. In terms of the power play, they've been really mixing it up lately, so I really don't know what their first line power play is officially. Sometimes they run 5 forwards, sometimes they have Thomas Harley on there. Miro Heiskanen is out week to week, so this is why they are doing this. We have Matt Duchene, who's playing incredible. Tyler Seguin, Mason Marchment, all playing really good. Jamie Benn, still getting power play time, doesn't have the best even strength minutes, so not the best option, but still. Then we got Wyatt Johnston and Thomas Harley. Next up, we got some Kraken players. They also have been splitting their power play. They really don't have a designated first and second units. However, they have some pretty good options on this list. So we have Oliver Bjorkstrand, Eli Tolvanen, Jared McCann, Jaden Schwartz, Jordan Eberle, Yanni Gord, and Alex Wenberg. Next up, we got some Ottawa Senators players. They don't have the best opponent goals against average this week, but still, 4 games and 2 off nights is solid. We have Drake Batherson, Thomas Chabot, both on the first-line power play. Chychrun playing really good despite not the best deployment. Vladimir Tarasenko, he's played solid. We have Ridley Greig, who is a diamond in the rough for this week because Josh Norris is out with a concussion. Greig is currently on the first line, centering that line, so he could be good for this week. And lastly, we got Jake Sanderson. He hasn't really played the greatest as of late, but still could be a solid option. Next up, we got some Rangers players. We have Vincent Trocheck, who's probably not available in most of your leagues, but he's still under 90% rostered, so I had to include him. We got Alexis Lafreniere, who's been getting a lot of minutes lately. He's been getting like 18, 19, 20 minutes per game, taking a lot of shots as well, so kind of an underrated option. We have Jacob Trouba. He is probably not available in a category or banners league, but still in a regular points league, he could be a good option. Then we got Keandre Miller. Finally, we got some Leafs players. Not the greatest option here, guys. The Leafs are very top heavy. We have Tyler Bertuzzi, Cagliari Crow, Matthew Nyes, Max Domi, and Jake McCabe. Next up, we got players that have 4 games and 1 off night this week. We have players from the Colorado Avalanche, the Philadelphia Flyers, the Los Angeles Canes, and the Montreal Canadiens. I've ranked this based off how I view them in fantasy in terms of their point potential, but it will depend on your league settings. To list us off rapid fire, we have Jonathan Drouin playing absolutely incredible first line power play. Owen Tippett, Cole Caulfield, Nick Suzuki, Trevor Moore, Joel Farabee, Mike Matheson, Sean Couturier, Drew Doughty, Quinton Byfield, Philip Deneau, Morgan Frost, Jamie Drysdale, Tyson Forster, Travis Sanheim, Ken Atkinson, Pierre-Luc Dubois, Sean Monahan, Ross Colton, Juraj Slavkovsky, Matt Roy, and Igor Zamula. I do want to point out that the Los Angeles Kings the week after this week have 4 games and 4 off nights, so maybe if you feel comfortable in the standings and you want to get ahead of your opponents, that could be a great option. Lastly, we have the players on teams that have 3 games and 3 off nights this week. We have players from the Detroit Red Wings and players from the Chicago Blackhawks. With the Red Wings, they don't have the best opponent goals against average, and they are running split power plays too, which isn't the greatest for fantasy. Regardless, we have Patrick Kane, Lucas Raymond, Shane Gostisbehere, JT Compher, and David Perron. And then we got some Blackhawks players. They have a great opponent goals against average this week, but still not a lot of options on the Chicago Blackhawks. We have Philip Kurashev, Jason Dickinson, and Seth Jones. All right, guys, that's the end of the video. Make sure you hit that like button if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new to the channel, and I will catch you in the next one.